Hello everyone, Charcoal here, and welcome to another Wings of Fire discussion. I think there's a valid argument to be made that A Guide to the Dragon World is Wings of Fire's most anticipated release ever. I remember when the release date for this thing was September of 2022, but then after getting pushed back several times, it finally landed here in October 2023. Keep in mind, not counting the graphic novel adaptations, the last brand new release was Book 15 back in April 2022, a year and a half ago. To say the entire fandom, myself included, was foaming at the mouth for this thing would be an understatement. When launch day came around, as soon as I was out of class, I went out to a local bookstore and picked up my copy. I read it, and
I like it.
I honestly can't say this thing was entirely worth the wait, but I still really liked it, and now I'm obligated to talk about it. The book is split up into chapters by tribe, but I won't be doing that here since there's a whopping 10 of them and I have similar thoughts on quite a few. So instead, I'll simply be splitting this review up into pros and cons. Let's start with the pros. Overall, this was the most fun I've had reading a new Wings of Fire book in a long while. It's pretty much a consolidation of the lore and info we've been given throughout the series until this point, plus a few extra details. You may recall in my Wings of Fire world building video when I expressed some concerns that this guide was just gonna tell us information. What I wanted was for it to be conveyed through storytelling, and that's exactly what we got. Having it be composed of letters from different characters provided the perfect opportunity to sit back and just let them be characters, let their personalities shine without having to craft a huge story everything revolves around. And I love it. For once, they're free to just interact and be themselves. It's so refreshing. The guide answers some big questions I've had for a while, like what happened with that Mudwing succession crisis mentioned in Escaping Peril? How and why did the Rainwings go pacifist? Who was crazy enough to not just marry Scarlet, but have 16 kids with her? What happened to Queen Monarch? The little stories that were told here were really fun and interesting and gave this world's history some much needed fleshing out. But the real highlight for me was all the little things. Learning a bit of Aquatic, the list of Rainwing scale colors, the Skywing anthem, the full moon festival originally being a Nightwing thing despite being portrayed as a Sandwing tradition in present day, and when you think about it, that actually makes sense. In Darkstalker's time, their kingdoms directly bordered each other. Some Sandwings probably picked up on the festival and brought it to their tribe, especially after the Nightwings disappeared. That's really neat. We also got the honey drop recipe, a detailed look at how the hives operated, excerpts from the Book of Clearsight, which, side note, krakens exist in this world apparently. And speaking of details, I noticed Fierceteeth's letter about the new settlement renewal basically confirms that the events surrounding the writing of this guide in-universe take place about a year after the third arc. This is because Fierceteeth mentions she's pregnant and about to lay her eggs. I'm pretty sure Fierceteeth and Strongwings would wait until their new settlement was established and secure before trying to have eggs, unless they were just that bored in their prison cell. Books 5 and 6 are set 6 months apart, and 10 and 11 take place at pretty much the same time, so it's nice to have a more substantial time skip. Even though these details were small, their inclusion made a huge difference. By filling in those nitty-gritty spots, it really helps this world feel lived in. That's how I felt reading this. I felt like I was just living in the dragon world, even if only for a little while. But it's not perfect. I want to mention some of the more minor things first before I get into the big stuff. First of all, there are a few typos. On page 160 in Queen Ruby's letter to Starflight, I assume she means to say much more interesting, but instead she says Muka more interesting. And on page 193, the honey drop recipe, the instructions mention adding the honey twice and never mention adding the water. These are only nitpicks and probably just the fault of Scholastic not having better quality control, but they still irk me. Also, this page. This page can go die, painfully. Next, the Pantala chapters. What is up with the queens here? The Flames of Hope epilogue told us the Silkwings and Leafwings were coming together to form a joint democratic nation, but the Leafwing chapter still names Sequoia as their queen, and the Silkwing chapter doesn't name a current ruler at all? The whole Leaf Silk Kingdom thing isn't even brought up here. What's with that? But most confusingly, Wasp is still named as the Hivewing Queen for some reason? Wasn't she thrown in prison for life and Lady Jewel took over? But my biggest gripe isn't what we got, it's what we didn't get. I feel like we just didn't get enough to call this guide worth the extremely long wait. It almost feels like there's stuff missing. You don't just show us a piece of the ranking wall with the dragon's written language on it and then not give us a key. And a handful of the passages in here would have worked better as their own books. The Legend of the Hive is still pretty vague. How about a Legends book about it? Or maybe one about the Tree Wars? You don't even need Legends books. The Mudwing succession crisis would have made a really fun winglet. Or Smolder's diary about taking care of Flower with random bits of moping about Palm sprinkled in. Why not build on his and Palm's relationship? And what about Fierceteeth Fierceteeth seemingly having an entire character arc off-screen. Expectations for this book were extremely high, and I don't think it entirely delivered on them, but again, that's me judging based on what we didn't get. What we actually got was still really good, I just wanted more. But let's wrap this up. A Guide to the Dragon World, despite its flaws, is easily the best thing Wings of Fire has put out in years. It's the best thing post-Poison Jungle for sure. Dare I say, it might even be the best thing post-Darkstalker. Even if it didn't completely live up to the hype, it's still really fun on its own. It brought back that feeling of escapism that made me fall in love with Wings of Fire in the first place, and that alone is a big accomplishment. If nothing else, it's refreshing. Some nice reassurance that the series is still in pretty good hands, and that's going to be important looking at what's coming next. By now, I'm sure you've all heard the news. At an event on October 1st, Tui herself confirmed a 4th arc is coming.
So a lot of kids wanted to know if there's going to be another story arc.
I think I can say yes.
Here's what I know. She doesn't have a concrete idea yet, but she's thinking of focusing on the younger generation, Bumblebee, Mink, Auklet, all those guys, which implies we'll finally get a bigger time skip. She also acknowledged that the Mudwings don't get nearly enough focus, and she might want to include Umber. I already really like those ideas, that sounds like everything I've asked for, but I am cautiously optimistic. Do I think a 4th arc is necessary? No. I struggle to call the 3rd arc necessary. On paper, a 4th just sounds like overkill. Do I still want it to be good? Yeah, obviously. I love Wings of Fire, so if there's new content on the way, of course I hope it's entertaining. Whether or not I think it will be is a whole other question. You already know my opinions on the series' last few entries, and if it continues that downward slide, I just don't know if I can stick around for it. However, Tui also stated she's currently working on a non-Wings of Fire book in the meantime that's taking priority, something about a sci-fi murder mystery. And regardless of how that turns out, the fact that she's taking a break from Wings of Fire at all is reassuring to me. Keep in mind, Tui released over 20 novels in 10 years, not even counting the graphic novels or other companion books. If she's burned out, then I don't blame her. Going to work on something else for a bit and coming back to Wings of Fire with a fresh mind might just be what the series needs, who knows. On the other hand, going through another content dry spell is just gonna raise expectations for a 4th arc even more. Based on what little we've been told so far, I'd like to stay hopeful, but like I said, cautiously optimistic. That's all I've got for now. I really want to get to the next Ninjago review, but that still needs some time in the oven. In the meantime, I've got another Wings of Fire video that's almost entirely written already, and I think this is going to be a fun one. Might have to split it into 2 parts though, we'll see. Thank you for visiting Charcoal's Den, and I'll see you all in the next video.